Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Stefan Blakemore and I have with me Amber Roberts.
Hi.
And Dan Adams.
Hello.
And I'm sorry for how long it's been. I'm still just dusting off the dust and cobwebs from all my Outcast controls. It has been a while.
Yeah, it's been ages. So I just think we should do this more often.
Yeah, that would be good. Unfortunately, real life does tend to get in the way.
Yeah, it can be tricky like that.
I mean, with people having jobs and social lives and this real life stuff that they have to deal with, I'm not sure what all this real life stuff is, though.
Nor am I, but you know, it happens apparently. So, yeah, real life.
Yeah. Dan, do you know what this real life thing is?
Trust me, it's bad news.
Oh wait, I think I know what real life is. Isn't that the thing that Gene Roddenberry made?
I don't think that was. I don't think that's what a lot of people would say, but I think, yeah, I'd agree with that, to be honest. But yes, that is the reason we are talking today. We are basically going to have a bit of a chat about Gene Roddenberry, his life, and the impact that it's had on pretty much every single person listening to this podcast, I think.
Happy birthday, Gene.
Happy birthday, you are missed.
Indeed.
So, yeah. Broad question for you two. What do you know about him?
I kind of know that he made Star Trek and literally had a big, huge, wild vision that you can almost say it became a reality anyway. So that's just first off without reading anything else.
Okay.
I believe he was born in Texas, I think it was, in the 20s, I think. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. He flew a few combat missions. Then he came and served in the LA Police Department, where he was brought on as a consultant on one of the TV shows that were being made about the police.
Really?
Yep. Then eventually he submitted a script for that show that was used, and then I believe my understanding is that he then became a full-time writer, and eventually that led to him writing Star Trek, his proverbial wagon train to the stars.
If I remember what I read correctly, he was a freelance writer and he wrote a few scripts for some various different TV series. Then he started work creating and producing a series called The Lieutenant, and after that, in '64, he created this odd little show that some people might have heard of called Star Trek.
Yeah, I think I've heard that. But it's interesting you just mentioned the Lieutenant, because that was when Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock, first met with Gene and worked with him.
Really?
Yeah, really. He worked on Lieutenant, the pair of them together, so quite interesting.
I never knew that.
I kind of just read it just now. So technically I didn't know that until about 2 minutes ago.
But yes, the thing is, with Star Trek, I think Gene wanted it to be sort of completely unique, unlike anything that had been seen before or since, and I'd say that he succeeded masterfully with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The thing you need to remember is that I think colour television was quite a relatively new technology.
Yeah.
So, for those that were fortunate to have a colour TV, the sets had to have that sort of colourful atmosphere. And obviously, by writing a science fiction show, he's got a sort of large palette to paint his worlds. So, that's...
Very much so. Either a colour palette or a sweet shop that he raided and stuck onto the consoles.
Exactly.
The terminals of the bridge of the original series Enterprise, all the buttons look like gumdrops and stuff you'd find in the sweet shop.
But they are, aren't they? Is that not what Gene did? He was just like, these are all sweeties. Yes, I will buy all of these because I want to make it in a computer console. Bye. Sorry for anybody that's actually listening. You've probably never heard me before. I'm crazier than crazy, so I don't apologize, but, you know, it happens.
Yes, this is Amber's second visit to the podcast, and I believe this is Dan's third podcast appearance, is that right?
I think it might. I think I've already done the one where I spoke about the acid ball, haven't I?
I was wondering whether or not you were with the previous one. Maybe I'm getting confused.
Yeah, so the thing is that Gene had his vision, and he obviously got a great crew, both on screen and behind the camera. So he had Matt Jeffries, who designed the Enterprise. I think it was him. And I believe he did the sets, although I could be wrong on that. He also had, a large writing team. He also had a great troupe of actors. Like Amber said, he'd previously worked with Leonard Nimoy, although he was one of the only holdovers from the original pilot because he did make two. He made The Cage first, which was considered, I think it was too cerebral. It wasn't action adventure enough for the networks. So he actually ended up making a second pilot. So whereas the first one had Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Pike, the second pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before, had William Shatner as Captain Kirk, and it was a lot more of a action adventure story.
This is correct. Other people that he had actually worked on with other things ended up being in Star Trek. We're looking at G.L. Kuhn, Gary Lockwood, Joe D'Agosta, Leonard Nimoy, obviously, Michelle Nichols, and Majel Barrett as well. So, the interesting thing for me, anyway, is To Set It Right was the first time we worked with Nichols, and it was her first television show. And that was actually a pilot as well, in which a white and black man find a common cause in the roles as Marines. And so it's quite interesting. He's tried many times to get a series going, but it's never really fully went ahead until Star Trek.
Fascinating. And yes,
See what
that
you
was
did
deliberate.
there.
How could I not? Honestly, how could I not?
Yeah, well.
But still, Star Trek, when it first came out, was absolutely groundbreaking, and I think quite a few people thought it was quite controversial because of the makeup of the cast. Is that right?
Yes. So one of the controversial points that came up very quickly was Nishol's role, because not only back then was people of colour not really thought of in a high respect, but had never been lead characters before in a movie, or on TV, I should say. And Nishol, obviously being a woman, presented that other challenge as well. So Gene got a lot of stick for bringing Nishol on as not only a lead role as a woman, but also as a coloured woman at that.
Yeah.
That also opened up the window, though, for coloured women and people of colour in general to get more lead roles in different shows.
I thought that aspect of it was fantastic myself. Like, once I actually grew up to be old enough to understand how significant it was. When I was younger, I just used to enjoy watching the series, Space Adventures and this, that, and the other.
The other interesting thing is obviously that it inspired a lot of people at the time. Whoopi Goldberg famously tells a story that where she, when she first saw it, she saw, a black woman doing a job on the crew, and she was happy that she just wasn't the maid, as it were.
Yeah, she just screamed over to her mother, "Hey, Mum, come and look, there's this black lady on the telly and she ain't no maid."
Yeah, that was the one. So that sort of starts to talk about how Star Trek inspires people.
It goes beyond that as well, because you had Chekhov and Sulu, and they were a Russian and a Japanese gentleman, respectively. And back in the 60s, which is when they were making this series, the relationship between the US, Japan, and Russia was not exactly comfortable.
No, definitely not.
With the Russians especially, it wasn't comfortable, because obviously we were in the middle of the Cold War at the time.
Yeah.
And obviously the interesting thing is that everybody in that crew is working as friends, and nationality doesn't mean people are proud, and people are still proud of the nationalities. That's the thing,
Yeah.
Obviously, Chekhov's proud of his Russian heritage, and Scott is equally proud of his heritage, but it doesn't divide the crew when it matters. The diversity of it all.
So yeah, I'm just reading here that Roddenberry was determined to make the crew racially diverse, which actually impressed George Takei when he came for his audition. So that's quite interesting. So another thing that really interests me here is when Roddenberry took the Star Trek idea to Oscar Katz, head of programming at, I believe, the Sulu Productions, they both started working on a plan to sell the series to the networks. But when they took it to CBS, they passed on it originally. And that was because, well, they didn't pass on it. The duo learned that CBS had been eager to find out about Star Trek because it had a science fiction series in development, Lost in Space. So, not sure why it says they take it to CBS, which ultimately passed on it. So, but yeah, it's quite interesting that it was Lost in Space that kind of helped Star Trek get off the ground a bit with CBS.
Yeah, the funny thing was, I think I read somewhere that they call Lost in Space the more adult program. And I don't know if either of you have ever seen it, but
I have.
Yeah, it's not quite.
I've only ever seen the film with Matt LeBlanc.
Oh, that's awesome. I know this has been asked probably 100 times over, but I wonder what Gene would now think of it as a franchise if he was alive today.
Well, have you seen the documentary? Oh, I can't remember what it's called. Rod Roddenberry did it. Oh, it's gone. The name of the documentary is gone. But he did a documentary about his dad, and he spoke to a lot of people to do with Star Trek as well, including J.J. Abrams.
Okay, yeah.
And he showed him an old interview with him, and Roddenberry said that he would like to start looking back at a crew when they were cadets and starting from the beginning, which was obviously what we ended up with the JJ films.
Yes. Okay, so that must have been the inspiration for that then.
Well, I think it would be more a compliment to him to know that the vision that he came up with is still going strong today, and that's 50 years after he came up with the initial idea.
Yeah, 50 years was a long, long time for something like this to keep on going. I do hope it lasts another 50 years, but I can't see it lasting more than another 20 years or so, to be honest, so...
Well, you never know. I mean, we haven't seen anything of Discovery yet, so we can't really say much for the moment. For all we know, it could end up being absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it could be. I really am looking forward to Discovery, though.
It'd be nice to have some more Trek to actually watch. As much as I adore The Next Generation, I am getting kind of sick of constant reruns.
Yeah. That's why I have Netflix. Just watch the entire series 1 to 7 of Next Gen, then do Voyager, then do Enterprise, then do DS9. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure we're all quite masterful of the binging arts.
Oh, God. I mean, I used to binge before there was a Netflix, before even DVDs. I used to have some of my Star Trek VHS. I mean, it wasn't a full season, but I did have quite a collection. And I used to enjoy sitting and watching them. Just, an afternoon would go by. It was great.
Yeah, we had quite a collection of the original series on VHS. That was actually my first introduction into Star Trek. It just lined on a shelf in the living room, and I probably got curious about them, asking my dad what they're about. So at some point he probably grabbed one, put it on, and let me watch it, and I thought, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I'm just reading up on his death. From reading this right, he basically died as a result of a stroke, which is sad. Not an easy way to go, but he's done a lot for millions of people.
I think he was quite active, obviously, right up until he first got ill, because he did sort of produce the Next Generation, and that is a very sort of controversial era when you look at those first 2 years. Another documentary I really recommend that's on Netflix. It's called Chaos on the Bridge. Okay. It's actually hosted by William Shatner, and it's about those first 2 years. And it talks about the struggles that would go on between Roddenberry and the writers and the studios. And it was really hard going for Roddenberry during that time. But a very interesting period. That's the thing with Star Trek The Next Generation. Although he did lay down the ideas, and there are some great ideas there, I think, obviously, because he had control over it, I think sometimes a lot of the ideas were too tied to the 1960s when it was now the 1980s and going into the 1990s. It was only when these sort of other people came in and built on his work, but managed to find, what Roddenberry's core vision was, and sort of take it into different directions. And I think that speaks to the strength of the Star Trek premise, that it can keep going, and you can adapt it, and you can still keep telling new stories.
It's like we have now been without a new series of Trek, if we take out the movies, for a very long time now. So with Star Trek Discovery coming up, that's exciting in itself. But there is a big danger with Star Trek Discovery, for Star Trek Discovery, and that's this new Orville series. So what do you guys know about that?
It's a science fiction dramedy, according to what I saw on Wikipedia, I think, which I think is basically attempting to be a cute play on words for a dramatic comedy.
Yeah.
From what I can see, they're trying to take several elements of series that have been done in the past, especially a lot of elements from Star Trek, and put them together in a different way to come up with something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has got a really big Star Trek pedigree. Brandon Braga is involved, and obviously he was a producer on Enterprise and Voyager, and he was quite a big part of the Next Generation towards the end. I've heard that Andre Bonamis, he was a science consultant on the Next Generation and all those TNG Enterprise and all those shows. I think he's involved with it as well. And I don't know if either of you know this. Have you ever heard of a guy called Gabriel Kroner? He was from Trekkies. He was featured in Trekkies.
Okay.
The visual effect. He became a visual effects producer on the strength of the animations he was doing for his fan films back in the 1990s. And he has worked on Enterprise and Battlestar Galactica. And he's working on the visual effects on this as well. So I think, and her name has escaped me, I should have really done my research, but Sisko's wife, the lady who plays
Cassidy.
Sisko's wife?
Yeah.
Penny Johnson, that's it.
Yeah.
Penny Johnson, she's actually on the show as well.
Wow. Okay, so by the sounds of it, and from what I saw when I saw the trailer for the first time earlier, it does look like it's going to be a big contender for Star Trek Discovery then, and it could possibly knock Star Trek Discovery away just all by itself. Because Stefan was saying earlier, it does have elements from other sort of sci-fi era. From what I saw, it looked like it's got elements from Red Dwarf in there as well. So
yeah,
it is exciting. Quite a lot of exciting stuff happening.
Yeah.
I think it'll just depend on how they run it. Is it going to be more of the dramatic, proper sci-fi elements that we're used to in Star Trek, or is it going to have more of the elements of humour like you get with Red Dwarf?
And I think the other thing, I mean, obviously, we're not really mentioning the guy who's produced it, Seth MacFarlane, who's created it and is actually the lead character. Obviously, he was
Seth MacFarlane?
Yep.
That surprised me.
Yep. He's a huge Trekkie. In fact, he had a little cameo in Enterprise.
Yes, he did.
He was an engineer under Trip Tucker, and he had a few little cameos then. And obviously, in his work, Family Guy, there's been a lot of Star Trek references.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think might happen. If you look at everything that Seth MacFarlane's done, he did obviously Family Guy, he did American Dad, he did A Million Ways to Die in the Old West, and he did Ted and Ted 2.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that Patrick Stewart has been involved with all of those.
Oh, that would be lovely.
So it could very well be that there might be a little funny cameo from Patrick Stewart.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
I really hope it's a Picard reference. That would just be awesome.
But to take your point about fighting, I don't know if they're fighting each other or not, to be honest. I mean, I think some people may prefer the Orville, but obviously the Orville is on Fox in the US, which is a TV station, whereas Discovery is going to be on, in the States, it's going to be on
CBS Access.
in
Yep.
CBS Access. So which is basically going to be like their version, which is going to be like a version of Netflix for CBS. So I don't think they'll be actually competing as such. And if you look at history, back in the 90s, you had Star Trek and Babylon 5 in production at the same time. And
Yeah.
I don't think one really put out the other one. But I think I think the Orville's biggest threat is going to come from Fox, because they're the ones who cancelled Firefly. So
Yes, that's very true.
So Fox have a bit of a reputation for cancelling shows. Looking at the trailers, it seems like there doesn't seem to be the usual Seth MacFarlane sort of humour. So, there's some of it in there, but it's not as coarse as Family Guy.
Yes, very much so. It's calmer. There are a couple of swear words thrown in, but nowhere near as much of the sort of crass humour that you can find in Family Guy and American Dads.
No.
Nothing that will make you sit back and go, whoa!
Just to touch back on Stefan's point earlier on, will it have comedic elements to it? From what I saw earlier on, it already does. It'll have a high comedy content to it, just in that trailer. So
we need no longer fear the banana.
Yep, we need no longer fear that banana. That banana can...
Does it work on other vegetables? What about salad?
Does it work on a salad?
Man after my own heart. As long as he doesn't get rid of apples. I love apples. But still, it does sound as if it's going to be extremely interesting. Personally, I don't think it's really going to be too much of a threat to Discovery, because Discovery seems as if it's going to be very gritty and edgy and sort of very much focused on action and conflict. Orville, I think, is going to take a more light-hearted look at it, so I think it just depends on whether or not people want to have some laughs with their action.
Okay.
I'm personally looking forward to both, though.
Yeah, after now seeing Orville, I'm going, yep, excited for this. It's like, What are the release dates? Do we know any release dates yet?
I think it's definitely the fall. I think it's definitely September in the US. I haven't heard.
September. It is set to premiere on Sunday, September 10th, 2017, with new episodes to air Thursdays at 9 p.m. on Fox.
Okay.
As for Discovery, I'm not entirely sure.
Discovery is going to be, I think it's the 24th in the US.
September?
24th of September, yep. And then it will be on Netflix, so for those of us in the UK, on the 25th, so the following day.
So Discovery is coming onto Netflix, that's good. I like this idea.
Yeah. Discovery's going to be on Netflix everywhere else in the world except for the US. Oh, it's going to be on an actual TV in Canada on the Space Channel, I think it is.
Wow.
But everywhere else, it's on Netflix and CBS All Access.
Okay. Well, I'm still looking forward to seeing it. I just have to see if I can bug my friend to let me borrow his Netflix at one point. But I think we have gone a little bit over time.
Oops.
Then again, all of us are guilty of doing that when we get into Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, yes, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I believe our next podcast will be talking about the Starbase 24 banquet, which is being held, isn't it the 22nd of September?
Yes.
Yep.
I think it's that weekend.
22nd and 23rd. And by the way, there still are tickets available for that. If you can make it, please do. It's the best fan run event of the year.
Yeah, sadly I can't go, but I hope you guys have a good time out there. So
I'm sure we will. I am planning on doing some live broadcasting from the banquet on the Facebook page, so make sure to tune in and have a look. We would absolutely love to hear any comments that you have or any ideas. So if you have anything that you want to say, please make sure to post it up on our Facebook page, which is basically at Basecast24. If you are interested in tickets for the banquet, you can have a look at www.starbase24.co.uk and click on the banquet button. That'll give you absolutely every bit of information you need as far as the venue, the location, travel options, and accommodation. If you want to visit us on Twitter, again, we are at Basecast24.
Just remember, on August 19th, that's actually Gene's birthday.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Gene Roddenberry's birthday is on the 19th. We are hoping to get this released on that day, but you're probably going to be listening to this after that, so
yeah.
I hope you enjoy it. And if you weren't aware that it was Gene's birthday then, well, you know
You do now.
So you can wish him a belated happy birthday and congratulate him on coming up with an absolutely game-changing idea.
Yep, he definitely changed the world. Not many people can say that it did that.
Very true. So, yes, I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else that I might have forgotten.
I think that's pretty much everything. I think one thing that I think Roddenberry really liked is obviously you realise that how well beloved his creation become by the fans. So, if we just keep on working together, building our community and having a great time, I think that's the best way we can honour him.
Yep.
I completely agree.
Definitely support everyone and anyone.
So, on that note, I would like to thank all of you for listening, and Dan, Amber, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. Amber is now in charge of the social media aspect of Basecast24, so
yep.
More than likely, if you ever send a comment or tweet, then it's going to be Amber that's going to be getting it first.
Yep.
But don't let that put you off. She's a lovely person and very friendly.
Okay, then.
A little bit mad, but so are we all.
Just a little bit.
And Dan, of course, is in charge of the communications department of Starbase 24. He mainly works on the Frontera newsletter, which has got all sorts of interesting bits of information about all of Starbase 24dom, interviews with various different officers, information on upcoming events. He also has reviews on sci-fi elements that are coming up or have been done in the past. Is that right, Dan?
Yep, that's right. Particularly this year, the ones I'm doing this year, because it's the 30th anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm basically going back and looking around the show a little bit. In the last issue, I looked at the genesis of Star Trek. So again, there's more interesting stuff about Gene in there. And in the next one, I will be looking at the characters.
Exciting.
That sounds good. I think that's about it for me yammering on. So, on behalf of Starbase 24 and Basecast 24, my name is Stefan Blakemore, and thank you very much for listening. Live long and podcast.